Good morning, everybody. Thank you for, are we 11 o'clock? We are, for joining us. I can see there's a lot of people still coming into the room, so forgive me if I waffle for a couple of minutes. Welcome to this morning's webinar in the Event Insight series. Today we have Ben Crabb, who is a Freelance Event Safety Manager, doing a session on CDM regulations and what they mean for the live event industry. I'd imagine you're probably not in here unless you know roughly what CDM regs are and what they're all about and why in events we need to be paying attention to them. But Ben will go through all that and then explain how they all affect us and why we need to pay attention to them. They're a UK thing. CDM regs are a UK thing, but there will probably be similar in your country. I know we have a somewhat similar situation here in Ireland, which we might talk about in the Q&A at the end, where hopefully Martin Cullen, my business partner, might join us. He does a lot of the construction regs and the kind of the health and safety on event builds and breaks for us. So he's busy with a couple of clients this morning, luckily, but hopefully he'll be able to jump in at the end. I'm just going to click on the chat here. Let me know if you're hearing me okay and if the video is okay. Hopefully everything's fine. Just pop a message in the chat and let me know that you can see and hear me. The chat is where you ask us questions. So pop questions in there. We will mark them as questions and we will track them so that when we get into discussions with Ben during the session, we'll be able to get those questions you guys have across. Every presenter who's working on the series with us, they have their slides, they have their presentation, the content they want to get through. But we're all keen that you guys are getting the value that you need from them. So if there's a burning question and someone writes it in the chat and you echo it, you want to hear the answer to that too, just let us know in the chat and we'll be able to follow that there are key things people want discussed and we can jump onto that. I want to thank, before we kick off, Actavo Events. If you're coming to a lot of these webinars, you'll hear me say this a lot because Paul Griffin and the guys in Actavo Events are working with us on these webinars. And again, we were keen from the start. We spent money on the tech to make sure that we weren't limiting numbers in rooms and people could get in and we wouldn't be disappointing people and stuff. So Paul Griffin got in touch very quickly to offer to help us pay for some of that. He's a great supporter of what we do as our Actavo Events. So we're glad to have them on board and we're glad they're helping us out. They wouldn't let me brand a load of stuff and put their logo on things. So I said at least I would mention them in each podcast. Ben is going to have some things for you guys to download, which are quite helpful. The slides from his presentation will also be available at the end to download as well. So things like that will appear underneath the chat for you. There's a file section. As soon as we put something available for download, you'll see it there. When we put up a poll, like I'm going to do right now, it'll jump up too. There's a red tab on the chat. If you press that, it minimizes all the chat if you don't want to be looking at that, if you find it quite distracting. Just remember that files we're talking about and polls and things will live over there. Offers and stuff live over there too. So I'm going to pop a poll live very quickly just to make sure everything's working. And just let me know, pick an answer and let us know what you think. A couple of quick things, because a lot of people have been asking about. First thing a lot of people are asking about is recordings. We are recording every webinar. We haven't yet sent links to the recordings for the first two webinars. That's by design. We've been working on piecing them together and getting them available, but we're also working on a couple of key partnerships to make them available worldwide as well, which will make sense when we launch them. So I think they will probably be going live in the next day or two. If you were at either of the two previous webinars, you'll get an email with that link to those recordings. So in general, yes, these are being recorded. And once we're up and running with where those recordings live and how you're going to hear about them, you'll be able to access them there. Certs was the other thing people were asking about. We have managed to find a less labor-intensive way to do certs of attendance for these webinars than we were thinking. We always wanted to do certs of attendance from the start, but the work we've over 4,000 registrations now, so the work that would have been involved would have been mental until I found a beautiful, thanks to some colleagues on LinkedIn who pointed me in the right direction, we found a beautiful piece of online software that does it for us. So if you've attended the two webinars already, hopefully you've already gotten a cert. If you're here today, you'll receive one after this, so you'll know what we're talking about. I think that's all the housekeeping. Like I said, use the chat for any questions. you'll see us mark them. They'll turn red with a Q, which means we flagged them as a question. Ben's presentation has a natural break about halfway through where he'll take questions, and we'll have questions lined up from what you guys have sent in, or emails that have come in, or messages on LinkedIn looking for questions to be asked and stuff. So we'll have them ready, and then at the very end we'll do a Q&A as well. At the very end, I'll also put the slides for the presentation live. Probably when we start the Q&A, I'll let you know when they're there, and you'll be able to just download them. And as other files get mentioned or become important through the presentation, we'll put them live as well. So just keep an eye on that tab that says files. There's about 4 or 5 files that Ben will be giving you guys today. I'm just taking one last look at my notes. I think I've said everything I need to say. Like I said, if you do minimize the chat, remember that's where stuff lives. Use the chat to tell us if there are any problems. If there's a sound or a video issue, a lot of the time there's nothing we can do about it. It could be a local thing on your internet end, it could be our end, it could be Ben's end. Thankfully, we've not had any issues yet, so fingers crossed, but do let us know in the chat. I think we're about to get ready with Ben. So Ben is going to run you through the CDM regulations, how they pertain to events, and then during the conversation halfway through and at the end, we will discuss maybe how, and you guys can let us know how similar operates in your country if it does, and you can let us know whether they're applied well. I mean, CDM became a big thing for events in the UK a few years ago when they were told it will now be enforced. As Charlie Mussett said to me recently, for a lot of people who were doing it the right way already, it wasn't a problem. But for maybe some people who weren't clued into the way build and break safety should be done, it was a big thing that this was now being inspected. So it could have been a big thing in your life a couple of years ago, or maybe it's not, or maybe it was and continues to be. So I shall pass over to Ben. You probably won't see my head for a while, and I'll let Ben share his screen and take you through the presentation. Talk to you in a while, guys.
Okay, good morning all. I hope you can hear me. Hope you're all keeping well during lockdown, and you're all keeping all right. Hopefully everyone's hair is looking a bit wild. Got to the hairdressers yet, not letting the wife cut it either. So unfortunately, you're going to have to go with the Doc Brown from Back to the Future look. So as Mark said, we're going to have a look today at the CDM regulations. As he says, these came in, and they've been in place in the UK for quite a number of years, and we'll look at that as we go through the slides. But in 2015, they became more encompassing. And also, they obviously had this implication where suddenly events came under the CDM regulations in regards to construction where they didn't used to before. So there was a few changes which happened, which came in, and we'll go through that. And as we go through the slides, as Mark says, we'll have a little natural break about halfway through, where if you've got any questions relating to what we've done already, please let Mark know for the chat, and then we can see if we can answer them or not. So let me just get the slides up.
Sorry, Ben, can you just share your slides so the poor people aren't stuck looking at you, flanked by pictures of me and Martin?
Absolutely fine. They don't want to, see us, do they? Let's have a look at this. There we go. So hopefully then, so let's go from there. Let's click on it again. Excellent. So hopefully you all can see that now. Cool.
Yeah.
A bit about me, just so you know where I'm coming from on this. I've been involved in health and safety over 20 years. I'm a third generation of the family to go into safety. My dad was involved in health and safety and did some bits of the HC. My grandfather was as well. I said I would never ever go into health and safety, and unfortunately that's how my career sort of guided me, and here I am in this. I didn't start off initially. I started off teaching, ended up doing risk assessments for the college which I was working at, and then progressed through doing some construction work, teaching construction plant, forklifts, dumpers, diggers, road rollers, scaffolding, mobile scaffold, working at heights, rescue, working at heights, etc. And I then did some health and safety qualifications, and that's sort of how I ended up here and getting involved in events as well, from reviewing some risk assessments and how it was implementation of predominantly on the plant, segregation of people, etc., And then when the CDM regulations come in, some people approached me and said, we've got some bits and pieces, but how does this actually work so we don't get caught out or prosecuted if someone comes and inspects us? So, excellent. It's always good when it doesn't flick to the next slide. Just give me a second, folks. Hey, there we go. Put it on there. So what we're going to cover on this session is a few things. Hopefully to give you a bit of an understanding of the CDM regulations, how they fit and how they work. Some of the key terminology, because there is terminology in it, and we need to think about how that relates to events. And there is some words which you use, which we need to use on the documentation, because that's what the HSE in the UK want to see. And if we look at other legislation around the world on an international aspect, some of these words also pop up in those construction regulations as well. And also we'll look at how we report the CDM activity, how we let the HSE know we are undertaking a construction project. So, bit of an overview. Well, CDM, it stands for the Construction and Design Management Regulations, and the new version came in 2015. There's been other previous versions. The one which most people working to was 2007. There were some flaws in the 2007 one, which meant predominantly some people were slipping through the loop and were not being protected as much under the employer's guidance on their health and safety regulations and management health and safety regulations. So there was a change in the CDM, and they updated it for 2015, which meant major construction projects were covered. We also then had the implementation on domestic builds, which we're not going to discuss because that doesn't affect us. But also it brought in the fact that suddenly events will also come under the construction and design and management regulations. And predominantly it was brought in. So we put structure in place, how we look at the risks which are involved in the construction of a site and how it's built and what's going on, and how we, from the planning stage, manage out the risk to make sure people are safe. And that's predominantly what the CDM regulations in 2050 did. As we said, they're designed and implemented to control all construction projects. So including here in the UK, majority of domestic builds will now come under this, and major builds. And as we said, they're there to ensure that construction projects, they're planned. We identified organisation structures, who's in charge, and we inform the HSE of any long-term or large-scale projects. And the thing is the majority of events which we're involved in, whether greenfield or in a stadium or a tour, they will come under the CDM regulations. And that's sometimes where this is slipping through the net. As Mark quite rightly said, some people were doing this absolutely fine, but some people didn't understand this and how it works and why we need to report and how we report as well. And hopefully we'll answer some of those questions as we go through on this today. But ultimately, what it does is to ensure that construction projects are safe. And the 2015 one was ultimately changed. And it was changed really because of one big construction project, which was an event. And that was the 2012 Olympics down in London. And what they found was, although the construction project was running, there were times when the workers were exposed to different substances, for example, asbestos, cadmium, arsenic, formaldehyde, from where the site was originally used for casting and smelting. And we had soil contaminants, and people were breathing this stuff in, and also from the welding, from metal fume fever, etc. And there was nothing put in place to show how we designed out these risks from the start to protect the workers. And the HSE were quite concerned around this and this build of the Olympic Park. And that instigated the majority of the change to the CDM regulations. So it was an event which affected the majority of construction, but it's events which sometimes don't get how we use the CDM regulations and how we should be conforming. So why do we need it? Well, firstly, builds and takedowns will be classed as construction projects and CDM projects. And the reason why is because of these 3 bullet points. And these are really vital to understand. Why are they classed as a construction design management project? Well, the build will either last longer than 30 days. We have more than 20 workers working simultaneously at any one time on site, or we exceed more than 500 person days on that project. And the ones which we normally will fall into is that second bullet point, the fact we have more than 20 workers simultaneously working at any one time on site. And because of that, the project, the build, or the takedown would automatically be classed as a project under the CDM regulations. We do have other projects which might go on for longer than 30 days, etc. We do have some big builds. And all of these will have to be notified because they do come under as a CDM for events. So those 3 bullet points are quite important. As Mark said, you'll have these slides. So if you think, what have we got to do? Why do we need to report it? Well, does it come under one of these 3 categories? And if it does, we have a duty. We have that duty of care to ensure that we report and notify the HC that we are actually undertaking this construction project. Within the CDM regulations, there is some terminology, and the terminology is key, and it crops up again and again and again. And also, if you go on the HSE site and you fill in the paperwork, this terminology will be used. The paperwork which I've sent to Mark to send out to all of you after this, and we'll look at some later on as well, this terminology is used in that paperwork because it's what the health and safety executives and the HSE and the regulating bodies, the local authorities, it's what they understand. So we must understand this terminology. And I'll give you how this relates to the construction, to the events industry from construction as well. So we have an understanding within the events industry what we're actually talking about. So there's a few terms. We have something called a client. We have someone called a principal designer. We have a principal contractor. We have sub-designers. We have subcontractors. And we also have something called a construction phase plan. Now, some words on there you may have heard, you may be familiar with, you may have heard the client, the principal designer, contractor, and you may have heard of construction phase plan. And I expect most of you probably heard of subcontractors. So what I'm going to do over the next couple of slides, we're just going to go through some of these to explain what that is, what their role is, and also how that relates to what we're doing within events. So the client. So the client is that person who has an overall in charge. It's normally the organizer, the person who's actually asking that project to be carried out. So they have the ultimate responsibility. If we go back to our Health and Safety at Work Act, if we go back to our Management and Health and Safety at Work regulations, it says that the employer has that overall responsibility, that duty of care. And in fact, what this is doing with the CDM is this is enforcing it. It is that duty of care. That person who's asking for the work to be done is classed as the client. So the organizer has that ultimate responsibility for all the health and safety being carried out on site. And it's something which may need to be explained to them. You may have an event organizer come to you and say, we'd like to organize an event, this is what we want to do, etc., etc. Part of our role, and we'll talk about in a minute, is we need to make sure the client is actually understands their roles and responsibilities in regards to the construction design and management regulations. And that's basically that we need to tell them that you are overall responsible for all the health and safety which occurs on site. And if something goes wrong, then potentially you're the person who's going to end up in court for the breach of the Health and Safety at Work Act, etc. And the other regulations, depending on what the accident was. So it's quite important they know what they're going to do. There's a couple of things they must do. They've got to appoint a principal designer and a principal contractor. Now, in the CDM regulations, we've actually got to put this in writing. So the best place we can put this and have this noted down is put it in the event safety management plan. We create event safety management plans so people know what's happening on the site, so we can pass it to people such as the SAGs, the safety advisory groups, so they know what the organisational chart looks like, who's in charge, who's doing what. And if we've got these people, and it might be the fact they might be the site manager, but if we put under their CDM, principal designer, principal contractor, we started to fill some of this paperwork in. It makes it easier to look at. And some of this we can pull out of the event safety management plan. The other thing the client must do is ensure that coordination and cooperation between those involved. Have we got meetings? Have we got letters? Have we got emails going out? Have we got toolbox talks? Have we got safety briefings, etc.? How do we coordinate and cooperate? Now, one thing which most events will have in place is they will have an event project plan. Who's on site, what's happening at what time, and when other people can move on. That's part of this. This is part of the coordination. And what you'll see with events, and when I started looking at events in 2015, when I got asked to start looking at how the CDM, etc., very simply, very quickly, you can see that a lot of this, if you've got a really good structured event safety management plan, a lot of this information you can see in there and you can start pulling out straight away. And the other thing is we do have to prepare as a client, the client has to, is prepare any pre-construction information and provide that to the duty holders. For example, the health and safety executive, they've got to pass that information to them. And we'll discuss how we do that in notification, who the client is, who the principal designer is, who the principal contractor. They're the words which we're going to use. And that's what we must tell the HSE so they know who to come and talk to if or when they turn up on site. Because the chances are they do get interested in this stuff and they will turn up. We have a principal designer. Now, the principal designer controls the pre-construction phase, the planning. Now, all events, we do a planning stage. What are we going to do? We go and walk the site. We go and do that initial site visit. We have a look at it. What's going on? Where the stuff go? Where are the exit routes? Where's the traffic routes? Where's the pedestrian routes? Where are we going to put the stage? What the topography is, what the weather condition is, what the ground condition is, etc. How are we going to get people on? When are they coming on? And this is what the principal designer pretty much does. Now, the thing is that principal designer can also be the client or the organizer. So we may have this organization which is producing an event. They are the client because they're producing it, but they have their own internal staff which does all this pre-construction planning, putting everything together, pulling in the contractors, who's going to do what, etc. And right at this stage, as principal designer, this is where we start managing out that health and safety, the risks right at the start. This is what our principal designer does. So those things I just mentioned, like the traffic, the noise, liaising with the local residents, the sidewalk, where are we going to put stuff, where are our ponds, where are our lakes, we're doing the extra lighting, do we need X, Y, and Z? That's the bit where we start to put this in place. This is our pre-construction phase planning. These sidewalks, pulling stuff together, that's what we start to do. Make notes of it, write it down. Most people start to put it in their event safety management plan. Can you see where this is going? If we've got a good, strong event safety management plan, a lot of the CDM stuff, we can pull straight out of it and say, here is our construction phase and our pre-construction phase information. And part of that planning bit is having that project management plan robust and making sure that we're sticking to the dates and when people are coming on, etc. And they do have to also plan, manage, monitor, and coordinate the health and safety in that pre-construction phase. So stuff they might be doing may be getting the subcontractors to send in their insurance documents, their certificates of training, any previous accidents, any previous investigations. They're doing their due diligence, their duty of care. Who are we getting on site? What are they doing? Any plans the contractors have got? Any structural calculations, calibrations, all that sort of stuff. That is part of their monitoring and planning. Who are we getting on? What are they like? And are we pulling all that stuff together for the vetting? And the vetting side to this, for that principal design, is really, really important because it's showing that we are making sure those people coming on site are also safe. And that's part of that role, that principal design. We're trying to manage the stuff out, how we do stuff. If we've got working at height, which has been going to be going on, how are we going to do it? Are the people coming in adequately trained for working height? Have we got someone who can do rope rescues, etc.? So those people who do all the rope access and all the stage climbing, etc., you'll know what you need to have in place and what you've got to have in place. So send it into the principal designer. They know you've got that information.
Oh, we seem to have had an issue there. Ben seems to have disappeared out of the room. First time that's happened to us on one of the webinars. So forgive us while he presumably tries to get back sorted on his end. Must be an internet problem. Just a couple of things that have been going on in the chat. A question came in there about whether the 30-day threshold for notification to the HSE only applies if it's greater than 20 people. I think, judging by some answers in the chat, yes, that is the case. So it needs to be greater than 20 people and 30 days or greater. So I think that's an and situation. Again, forgive me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying to track things.
Yeah.
I think
yeah,
we have
apologies for that.
Ben
No
back.
idea.
Ben, can you hear us?
My accounting software decided to update and pull up my accounts. So no idea. So I'll switch that off. So at least.
No problem. I dealt with one question that had come in while you were off.
I'm ready to go again. Apologies.
If you're ready to get going again, you can.
No worries, mate.
All right, take over there. Off you.
Hi, folks, back again. At least you didn't see my accounts, which is always good, isn't it? It's always great when the gremlins get into the software and cause some shenanigans which you aren't expecting. So it's always good fun, isn't it? Live, isn't it? That's what it's about. At least you know it's not recorded. So I'm saying let's plan this stuff from the principal designer's point of view, and we then come on to the principal contractor. It's not flustered me at all, honest. Principal contractor, which is the next person. So the principal contractor, they're really. I'm going to fire these up, so we go through the lot. And the principal designer is in charge of all that pre-construction stuff. The vetting, putting the stuff together, the plans, the timescales, the project plan, etc., how it's going to work. And then we have the principal contractor. Again, this person can be the main client or the organisation. We might have within that organisation a site manager. We have site managers. That person who is going to run the site, they are in effect the principal contractor. So they will liaise with the clients, the organisers, the principal designers. They know what's going on and what's happening with that project plan. They will also help prepare the construction phase plan. So we have the pre-construction phase plan, what's going on, and then as soon as we get on site and the work starts, the principal contractor is in charge of that pre-construction phase plan. When does the ped barrier go up? When does the fencing go up? When does the screening go up? When does the stage go up? When does the lighting come in? When does the technicians come in? When's the audio going? When do the food vendors come in? When do we start setting up the water points? Where do we run the electric cables, etc., etc.? When does security come on site? When does security knock off? When do we start getting in other types of security? When does the CCTV go in, etc.? That's what that principal contractor, that site manager is there to do. And some of you as site managers might recognise some of those jobs you get. You're on site. Once it all starts happening, you're in charge. And that's pretty much what you are as the principal contractor. And part of your job is to ensure that cooperation between the contracts. We've all had it. The lighting technicians are turned up to put the lights in, but the stage hasn't actually been finished and built yet. Or so a band turns up, they want to do a sound test, but the stage isn't ready, it's not signed off. So we have that cooperation between the contractors to make sure that we are on track, we're on target, and we're actually doing stuff on that set phase, and it's all working well. And if there are problems come up, then we deal with it. The other thing which the principal contractor is responsible for is for the site inductions. Under the CDM regulations, every person coming onto the site, because it is a construction site, must have undertaken a site induction. Now, what's in your site induction? That is up to you. But you've got to have things in there such as where the welfare, what happens if a fire alarm goes off, where assembly point, your first aid, etc. All those things which you put into site inductions, but that's down to the principal contractor to make sure that site induction is done, it's there, and it's being used. And we also keep a register of those people who have undertaken a site induction. And why do we keep that register? Well, if something goes wrong, we can say they've actually been inducted and they know what they should have been and shouldn't have been doing on site. And so we need that log and that register. A little note, the principal designer, the principal contractor can be the organizer. They can all be the same person. If it's that one organization who's doing the work, who's organizing the events and running it all, then they are everything. Now, this might affect large organizations which are event organizers. It could also be local authorities. Now, I know there's been some chats and some messages I got from local authorities saying, how do we apply these bits and pieces? Well, if you're a local authority and you might be organising something such as a Christmas market, then you are the client, you're the principal designer, and you're the principal contractor. You're running the whole show in effect, and you've got those roles. You just need to identify who is doing what. You can't say the company, the council, whatever they are. You've got to have a name in there of the person who is responsible for undertaking that. But they can be all three, okay? So we can put all those three together. The whole site is classed as one construction site. So once you start that build, the whole site is a construction site. It doesn't matter whether you've got a camping site over one side. It doesn't matter if you've got a food court. The whole thing is classed as a construction site. And there is lots of work going on there which you are responsible for. Now, one thing which gets thrown in as a little span in the works within the event side is we can have smaller construction sites existing within our own main construction site. And this could be people like exhibitors, vendors, coming in and putting up their own structures. So if you have someone come in who might be selling something or product, and they are going to put up their own marquee, that is their own little construction site. But we still have overall responsibility to them. Now, if they're putting up their own little marquee, or they're putting in their own staging, etc., and they're doing it under their own, because it's their own thing they're doing, then what we can do is these forms which we're sending is, for good practice, send them a pre-construction phase plan and a construction phase plan, and ask them to fill it in and send it to you as part of that vetting process and their submission of their risk assessments and their method statements, etc. So you know how they're going to put the build together and what risks are in place. You are overall responsible because you're asking them to come and work on your site, but in effect, you can have a small construction site working on your main construction site as well. And it can be a little bit confusing. We haven't got probably enough time to go into the full ins and outs of how that works. So if you've got questions, please do fire them, and I can send you some extra stuff later on to Mark to send out to you as well. So I know we had a couple of questions where I broke a little bit early for my accounts to come up, but I'm going to stop there now just to see whether we have any questions. So over to Mark.
Yes, unsurprisingly, we've had a good discussion on the chat, and we've had a couple of things come in. One of the shortest ones and jumps out at me here is the induction. Can the induction be an online PowerPoint that people are directed to see?
For site inductions, I use, I'm just going to say the piece of software I use Jotform. And part of the reason for that is I can produce a site induction. It makes parts on there mandatory people have to go through, stuff they have to upload, stuff they have to answer. And the ones which I use is they also upload a picture, got to take a picture, sign it, and when they click yes, and they've said they've done their site induction, it gets pinged to the site manager, we get a copy as well, and the person who's done the induction gets an email back with their picture saying when they've done the induction, they can show it to you when they turn up at site. But it can be a PowerPoint presentation. You just need some way to log they have actually done that induction, because you do get people turn up or they say, send them a PowerPoint, do the site induction. Have they actually done it? Have they just clicked a box and write their name at the end? And there is that. But yes.
I know. Actually, I'm just thinking, do you want to stop sharing your screen? It just might be better for people to to be seeing a slightly bigger us rather than the big blank screen. That's a good point. We've been working during build for festivals where, look, people arrive. Oh, now it's me big and you small.
You can do that.
Okay,
I
that's a
can't
bit
do
weird.
it.
Oh no, hold on. I can probably. There you go. That's a little bit better. And Martin in the middle. So we've worked on festivals where people arrive to site and either, look, honestly, they may have done the induction and it didn't register, or it might have failed or crapped out on them. Their boss may not have told them they need to do it at all. So I think for big festivals, we've always wanted that ability there and then to be able to, like the girls that were doing it were literally like, take out your phone, go to this link, stand outside the door. The internet's good here. Get on the Wi-Fi. Come back to me, and then it was ready. They'd see it show up on the back end, and they go, right, now you're done. But a lot of the time, it isn't until they're on site that they actually get that done.
We've had it as well. People turn up. We haven't done an induction. We haven't been sent anything. So there's a couple of ways. One, you can have some paper printed out which people read, or you can have a presentation they sit and watch. I'm not selling software. I'm nothing to do with them. But the only reason I use it is I found a nice little thing in the job form software, is the fact that links will work offline. So you can stand in the field with no internet and that form will work. And if it's on an iPad or an iPhone, it automatically uploads it to the Excel spreadsheet or the Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever you're using. So you have that log of people as well. And I'll be honest, it's taken 5 years to find a bit of software which works. It's not ideal, but it does work. And there are other events which you go to, it's a bit of paper, stand here, read that, sign here. And if that's what it is, that's what it is. You just got to make sure people have done some form of site induction. It is our legal responsibility, it is our duty of care to say that those people coming on site have done a site induction, and we have kept a log and a register to say they've done that site induction. And the reason we want that log and register is if something happens, that person gets injured, where we've notified it under CDM to HC, the first thing they're going to say is, what site induction did you give those people? And if we haven't got proof, we're on the back foot straight away.
So that's it. So I think that the induction itself can take any kind of logical, practical, usable format, but the point is that it happens, it's useful, and that someone has completed it, is logged and recorded. There's a few things that have come in, queries around. And I think your answer may be that some of this, in our experience anyway, some of it is event specific, depends on venue agreements and stuff. But like there's questions around in a built venue as opposed to a greenfield site. Who counts as the client? Is it the venue? Is it the promoter? Is it the owner of the venue? Is that the type of thing that usually gets boxed off in another piece of documentation where people agree what roles they're taking on if you hire the venue kind of thing?
You're hiring the venue, but you're still the organizer because you're doing the construction project on the site. So there's a couple of documents which are sent you, which Mark will send out. And they're lifted straight off the HC website because they show the roles for stadiums, greenfields, and then also for tours and for artist tours, etc., and large scale tours. But the thing is, you've got greenfields, you hire that venue or you etc. off the council, the commons, etc., whatever greenfield you're using or park. But as the organizer, you're still a client. If you're hiring a stadium and you're using it, or a sports venue, and you're putting it on as the organizer, you're the client. There are some responsibilities which go back to, say, a stadium, which you will need to look at. So things you would want to look at in a stadium would be, you might want to look at their Legionella management plan, how they're managing the water sources. You might want to go and look at that asbestos register. Have we got asbestos on site and how are we going to deal with it? Anything else which might come up on site, the structural plans, are we going to hang stuff off, etc., and how it's working, what their capacity calculations, etc. So as an organizer, if we're using someone else's venue, we might ask for some of that statutory information, but as the organizer, we are the client because we're hiring that venue in its own right, and we are then the client responsible for the contractor, the principal designer, principal contractor, etc. So it can look a little bit muddy, but in fact, we're hiring it.
Yeah, and again, I think it's one of those situations where there is a framework, and within a framework, it can operate a lot of different ways on different sites. And just to acknowledge, I think some people are seeing a bit of a sync issue between my sound and my video. Apologies for that. I don't think I can do anything without kicking everyone out of the room, so we may just have to deal with that. Just a couple of other things, Ben. How long before the event do the HSE need to be notified?
I can't think. If you give me off the top of my head, I can't think. You want to give them plenty of notice. I can't think. Like it's either 14 or 21 days. I'll have a look. I'll get back to you and I'll give you the answer to that. But off the top of my head, I just can't think of the number.
Right. Okay. We won't worry too much about that one then. What about smaller bills, say less than 30 days? There were a couple of people making the point that all events or all bills operate under CDM, but what we're talking about is the ones that become notifiable in advance to the HSE. Is that correct?
The best thing to do with any event or any build is run it as a construction site and implement the CDM regulations. Now the thing is, on that slide, what it says is 500 work days, 30-day project, or 20 people working on site at the same time. And that is normally the key. So if you've got 20 people working on site on a build and it's classed as a construction site, because you're building an event, it will automatically be classed as a construction site and come under the CDM regulations. So that's the key point to it.
All right. Okay. So that's the key element. All right. Another one and it's an interesting one for stadiums, for change of use during the summer for concert series and stuff. How does the owner retain responsibility there, or does that really pass, considering it's a change of use, as we discussed, does that then pass to a promoter, whoever's coming in and taking that venue as such to use it? Is that all on them at that point?
With a change of use for stadium, if it's the stadium themselves which are putting on the concert or the event, then they are the client in effect, because they're then contracting the other people in to run the event for them. If the organizer is hiring the venue from the stadium, then they are the organizer. Now, if it's a little bit confusing, people aren't getting it, what I'll do is I'll sketch up some organograms to simplify this, because I can see where people are coming from. There's nothing at the moment out there to simplify it. So what I'll do is I'll put something together after this webinar, and I'll send it to Mark and show that if this is a stadium you're running, saying how it works. If you're hiring a venue, this is how it works. Just so it makes it a bit clear for people as well, because it is a minefield, and you can get hung up on it.
Yeah, and to be honest, just looking through some of the other questions here, I think there's a lot of very specific use cases that people have probably come across and are trying to figure out if they dealt with it properly. So we may not have answers fully to a couple of these. Another one, what about, Laura's wondering, what about traders that need to enter, it's always traders, isn't it? What about traders that need to enter a CDM area to set up? And again, on big gigs, you could have hundreds of these. And as we all know, and Laura reiterates here, they're very difficult to get anything off or to read anything.
And there is a problem with traders and vendors. And the thing is under our duty of care, we should have something from them. We should have, I normally send out a very simple form where it says company name, insurance documents upload. Do you have more than 5 people? ECS, upload a safety policy. And this is where you then start getting, we haven't got a risk assessment, we haven't got a safety policy. We don't really know what we're going to do. So this is sometimes where we need to be a little bit helpful. Maybe send them a very simplified risk assessment. Take off the matrices. Don't stick any matrices on there asking for severity, likelihood, etc. So they won't get it. Just put on there what they're doing, what the risk is, who might be harmed, and what they're doing to combat it. If it's just three columns, you'll get something out of them. You might need to just talk to them. But in all honesty, for a duty of care of running a site, we need something in place, because if something happens to them, there's 2 which I'm involved in. One was a fatality, and one where it was a marquee company, but they were putting up some bits and pieces, and the marquee fell, and it nearly killed the chap. He's got severe brain damage. But when we went to them and said, can we see the documentation? There was nothing. There was no risk assessments, no method statements, no insurance documents. Nothing had been uploaded and vetted. And this is really important. This is what the designer's role is we've got to make sure we do this vetting. If they haven't got the forms, Find some nice simple forms. In the UK, we're lucky. We've got the Health and Safety Executive website, which have lots of nice blank simple forms. Send them something and say, fill this in. There's ones on there for a safety policy. There's a safety policy. Take out the bits which don't apply to you, put your signature at the end, send it back to us. We've got something. And that's what we need. We need that commitment from them to say they are actually working safety for our own due diligence for running the sites. So the going back to how do we get stuff out of them? We might need to spoon feed them. If we get real struggle, like I do with one event, which we deal with, we have over 560 traders. We've now got to the point where I've produced a blank risk assessment and a safety policy and a method statement, and we send it to them and say, fill these bits in. I've got something back. Because before, 75% of those people were not sending anything back.
No, I think you're right. I think, and again, sometimes as the safety people, it's not always black and white, but you need something. We've had to adopt that quite pragmatic approach at times too, often dealing with, craft traders, very small operations who genuinely are going to try and be safe, but maybe don't know what they don't know. And also don't have RAM's risk assessment method statement just sitting there. So we have templates, we have ways we help them. There are events we take on where we know we're going to spend our time hand-holding these people. And that's fine. You make the decision on that basis. Not everyone has a whole office dedicated to doing their paperwork. There's an interesting one. What size structure triggers CDM? Like, does a gazebo count? Does a 3x3 being popped up by two guys count?
It's one of those things. How big is a construction project? And when you look at it, I'll give an example. It's very difficult to relate it to events, but it's quite easy to relate it if you look at the domestic side of CDM in the UK. If a chap turns up at your house to build a wall, and he starts building the wall, and he hires another subcontractor to come and help and give him a hand, that's notified under the CDM regulations because you've got two contractors working on your site.
Yeah, but I suppose what's the likelihood that happens regularly? Yeah. There's a question there from Catherine, and I guess the answer is yes in a perfect word. Should events be following the CDM principles, even if their event isn't notifiable?
Perfect word, yes.
In a perfect word, yeah.
You can follow the CDM regulations very, very simply. And that is, if you have a well-structured, set-out event safety management plan, you will find you will actually meet all the requirements of the CDM regulations within the event safety management plan. There's something which I'll talk about in a minute, just what we do. So I'll mention it now, bugger it, to be honest, while we're on it. You've probably seen Mark and other people have who look at event safety management plans on a regular basis. Stick the risk assessment at the start. It's not an appendix, it's not an addendum, it's not a memorandum. It's why it's called an event safety management plan. There it is, right at the front. Get the risk assessment at the front. The risk assessment sets out what those risks are on site and what's going on pre-construction, during the construction. You always stick everything in there, traffic, people, everything. Why don't you take the form which Mark will send out, the construction phase plan, and just fill it in and stick it with the risk assessment? You've already got your organogram, who's involved doing what on site. You've probably got your list of vendors and suppliers and contractors coming on site. You've got your risk assessment. There it is. There's your construction phase plan. It should, if you write it correctly, your event safety management plan, it should all be in there. The ones I write, I stick in there. Literally, chapter 3 is the risk assessment. Chapter 4, construction phase plan. So if someone picks up and says, how are we managing the construction? It's in there. Doesn't matter if it's a little school fete. Doesn't matter if it's a village, tea party. Doesn't matter if it's something big. It's in there, and people can see it. And when you need it, you can just say, there it is. And the other thing is, if you send it to the SAG and it's in there, they can see you thought about it in the first place. They won't normally refer to it, but they know it's in there. Yeah.
But they know you've considered it and that you're thinking along the right lines.
Just think about it.
Yeah, actually, there's something that's come in a couple of times, and I think we've kind of answered it, but people are looking to make sure they fully understand this. So for an event build project, to be notified to the HSE, is it that it lasts longer than 30 days and at any point in time has more than 20 people? Or could it be a 15-day build and have 40 people? Does that make you notifiable?
It's not.
Is it an and or an or?
Literally those 3 bullet points I put up. If it hit any of those apply.
So if any of them apply,
then it applies as a construction site. So if you have got 15 people on site and the build only takes 20 days, then no, it doesn't. But if it hits one of those bullet points, it's classed as a construction project.
One of them.
And is notifiable.
Perfect, that's fair enough. So interesting one from Camilla. When does the construction phase end? Is it only when doors open, or is it when staff come on site?
Now,
actual
I
event
normally
staff
view
come on site.
the end
how
of
is
the
that viewed?
construction phase once we say the site is signed off and hand over to say we can open the doors and public can come in. That's when construction finishes. So once you've said the site is ready for public to come in, no movement, anything else, nothing being built, then the construction phase stops. Obviously, once the event finishes and we then start takedown, the construction phase starts again. So we have to remember that it's not just the build, it's the takedown as well. It's also classed as construction site as well. The only time it isn't construction site is when we've got the festival, the event taking place itself.
Okay, cool. Actually, now that we've touched on that again, I'm just going to pop up a new poll there that we were looking to get feedback on. So there's a couple of, I think we'll take a couple of more short questions and then we might let you get back into it and watch more questions come in. Here's an interesting one from a man I know very well, and I know his feelings on this. I don't know yours actually. What is your view on a yellow red card system for breach of health and safety regs on site?
It does. It is very political. It does two
things. Political.
I mean, the red card, the yellow and red card, you see it on a majority. I mean, I'm lucky because I do events and I do main construction sites as well, and I've been on some interesting construction sites around the world. And they do have this yellow and red card. Now, sometimes it works as an incentive. Will do good. I've been red carded. Some people see it as a challenge. Can I get red carded? Because when I've got red carded, it means I can't drive the forklift on site, which means I'm going to get sent, don't do something else. Or I might get sent off site because I don't want to be here. It's a real difficult one. I'll be honest, I don't use it. And the reason I don't use it is because there has been times where it's not been seen to promote health and safety. It's seen as a negative driver. And sometimes some people see it as a challenge rather than just say, pull them to the side and having a chat and say, if you get caught again, you're just off site, full stop.
Yeah, I think you'd have to really worry about people who see it as a challenge, wouldn't you?
Not necessarily event sites, but if you go to other sites, you do see that.
All right, I'd say let's deal with this interesting one, and we'll let you get back into the presentation. Can there be more than one principal designer and principal contractor?
There can. Now, even further,
just to complicate things further, you can have multiple people in these roles.
Contractors. Now, the principal designer and principal contractor under the regulations, what you should have is the client, then a principal designer and a principal contractor, and then they have sub-designers and subcontractors. However, where I turned around and said we can have a construction site within a construction site. So, for example, one which occasionally comes up is the actual stage build, because the stage, you normally hire in a staging company and they will use their own principal designer and principal contractor to run the stage build. So you could have that in effect as its own construction project on site. And this is where it can get quite muddied the water and what's going on. Have we got two principal designers, etc.? To be honest, the way I would look at it for events is say you've got one site, one principal designer who will work with sub-designers and have that principal contractor who's the site manager dealing with the subcontractors. It makes it easier for the organisation, the structure, and also the communication channels. And if you've got people like the stage lot turn up, send them the construction phase plan and get them to send it to them. Because I'll be honest, the only thing we ever look at, I know that I do when I'm working on site as a safety officer, you walk around, the only thing I ever look at on the stage while they're doing the build, are they tied on? That's all we really look at. I'm not a structural engineer, but I want to see the sign off and that someone who's a structural engineer has said that stage is safe. But all I'm really looking at is, are they working safely, and pick them up and say, are they working safely? So to be honest, ask them for the construction phase plan. Send them that form, one of these forms which Mark's got, and get them to fill it in, send it in with the vetting stuff and their risk assessments and their ramps. If you've got that, it just helps. And class them as a subcontractor.
Yeah. Right, okay, that makes sense. Now, we're about to let you hop back into the presentation, so this doesn't matter as much, but it does appear that a good few people are experiencing about a 4 or 5 second lag on my audio. So when we come back to do the Q&A, I'll hopefully remember this and remind you again, but when we come back to do the Q&A, what people are asking is, once you hear me finish asking a question, in a real awkward way, wait about 4 or 5 seconds before you start your answer, because what appears to be happening for some people is we're overlapping a little bit. So that may fix itself magically, or it may not. What I don't want to do is reset this room completely to try and fix it, because I think we'll lose everyone. So we might just have to deal with that bit of a lag that some people have. We'll continue to monitor the questions, and then we'll come back to them when you're ready at the end, and we'll deal with that lag if it's still there.
Yeah, that's fine, Mark.
Thanks, Ben.
Right, so there we go. Let's go back onto that. Let's click this. Excellent. So we've had a nice question session. There's some good questions there. Because it's not an easy subject to get our heads around. It's meant to be simple, but it's one of those things which isn't simple. So what else do we need in place? There's a few things. We've already mentioned we need a site induction. It has to be there, it has to be documented. Site rules. It's a construction site. I expect you've all walked around construction sites which you've seen. You have those posters up, hard hat, high vis, boots, gloves, goggles. It's your site. You decide what the rules are. If you're going to say people wear a hard hat, tell them to wear a hard hat. If they're wearing high vis, wear high vis. If they've got to wear steel toe cap, wear steel toe cap, etc. We need welfare facilities. Where are they? Where are those welfare facilities on site? Are they specific for those contractors coming on? Access control. Most of us do this anyway. We have the site office, we have that one exit and entrance. We control who's coming on off site. The vehicles, the people, they've done their site induction. Have they got their band on? Have they got their site pass? Can they come on? Also, monitoring of site activities. How do we do that? Well, we normally get safety officers in. Who's going around? Who's watching stuff? Site inductions. Normally tell people, my normal one is, if you see something and you think it looks dangerous, it probably is. Come in, let us know. It's quite a simple one. If it looks dangerous, probably is. Come and let us know. Which moves on to our construction phase plan. So our construction phase plan, I've got a document. Now, let's hope this just works. I'm going to pull a document up, which I put together, which Mark's going to send you at the end of this. So hopefully everyone's seeing this. So it is available to download, and this is one I took from the HSE and partly from CITB, because they've got lots of free documents as well, and I put on there what I want to see. So things you want to see, if you notice on the left hand side, these lovely orange colours on the side tell us what we're doing. We're planning, how we're doing it, company, who's doing it, the name and the address of the client, what's the job, music festival. Is there anything the client's made us aware of? This could be a host of things, couldn't it? We have neighbours who've made complaints because they don't want noise. We have ground conditions which might not be suitable for stage build because there used to be a rubbish dump there, or we've built the ground up. There could be risk of flooding on parts of sites. When we start it, when's the build actually starting? And the other thing is when does it finish? So it's not the date when you open the gates and that's when the festival starts. The finish will be the date when takedown finishes, and class the whole thing as a construction thing. Yes, you've got an event going on in between, but if you put the start date when you start the build and the end date of when the takedown finishes, that's fine. That's all they want to know. Put on there where toilets, etc. Who else is on site and contact details. What I normally write in there, if you've got all your vendors, your suppliers, your contract details, contractor details, most people will slide them somewhere in the event safety management plan. These are the people on site. These are their telephone numbers. Refer to it in X in the event safety management plan. Who's the principal contractor? Put their name on there. How will you be keeping everyone updated on during the job? Is there daily site inductions? Is there a toolbox talk? Is there a daily site briefing? What are you doing? It's a difficult one because sometimes this doesn't happen, but under the CDM regulations, we should have some way of keeping people updated what's going on. It could just be a text. You might want to send that out to everyone. It could be the fact you just get the key people together for a quick site meeting. It's whatever you want to do. Now, the organised bits, I've stuck in here bits which normally affect me. I just realised this is not the right form I've got, but I'll send you the right one. This one I need some structure size, but there's some bits on there which are similar. For some height, I normally stick that one in there. I think I've sent the right one to Mark. He should have it. Other things on there, collapse of structures. If you've got stage builds, you've got scaffolding, etc. Has it been scaff tagged? Has it been checked? Has it been inspected? Has it been signed off, etc.? If you're working in stadiums, have you got potential exposure to asbestos? Have you gone and asked for the asbestos management plan? What is there on site? Are they drilling into stuff? Is there dust which could be disturbed? Anything else which requires supervision? You might have movement of vehicles on site. On the form which I sent to Mark, which has got the for the events, the specific side, it does have on there the movement of vehicles, etc. Other things you might want there is electricity. And so the form which Mark's got, which we'll send you, in this organised box, it has on there bits which I would want to have a look at, bits which I would want to notify the HSE because they're high risk. And that's all you want in there. If it's present, put a tick in the box. What controls do you have in place? You can refer it to the event safety management plan, refer to the risk assessments, etc., competent staff, etc. That's all you need to put into that what controls you have column as well. And that's pretty much it. It's not a very long form at all. But once you've got those details on there, that's it. That's your construction phase plan. It's not very big at all. It comes as sort of a page and a little bit. But then by the time you filled it in, it's probably 2.5 pages long. It's not very long at all. And as I said, the majority of this stuff which you have to fill in on this form, you should have in your event safety management plan. So if you're pulling those details out of the event safety management plan, stick your risk assessments, stick the construction phase plan after risk assessment in your event safety management plan. You're compliant. You're not just compliant to the green guide, purple guide, local authority regulations, but also then you've got something in there to show you're complying with the Management Health and Safety at Work regs, the Health and Safety at Work regs Act, and also your compliance to the CDM regulations as well. Stick it in there. You know, more the better. When it goes to the SAG, at least they've seen you've actually been thinking about it. I'll make sure Mark has got the right form. It's just I haven't pulled up the right one. Let me just close that down. And we'll go back into this. There. So, other things, we need to make sure it's in that event safety management plan. Stick it in there. If it's in there, it's in there, okay? And make sure we've got risk assessments. If you've got a good event safety management plan, you've got the risk assessment. If you've got contractors coming in, you need their risk assessments as well, because they're going to tell you how they're going to go about doing that job, how they're going to put the stage up, what they're looking for. If you've got cranes coming in doing a lift, have you got a lifting plan? Have they got the appointed lifting person in place? Have they checked the ground conditions, etc.? Your project plan. You've got your plan there. What's happening right from the start? What are we doing? When's the site open? What's being built? When the waste's coming in? When the water's being put in? When the electric's being put in? When we're putting fencing up, etc. You've got your project plan. Stick it in there. You need it for that construction phase plan as well. It's all the documents which go together. That's the thing. That's the thing with this. You have lots of bits in all over the place. pull it together into one plan. You've got it there. Shrink it down if need be with the project plan. Now, our notification, we do have to tell people, and we've got to notify the HC, reiterating what came up those questions, if one of these is hit. So if we do one of these, we need to notify the HC. The build lasts longer than 30 days. We've got more than 20 workers working on site at any one time, or we exceed more than 500 person days. So if we hit one of those, we must notify the HSE. And we notify the HSE through a form called an F10 form. And when Mark sends you these notes, that F10's got a hyperlink, so you can click on it and you can go to the HSE website. There's some information on there, and then it says fill in an F10 notification form. You click on that and it asks you for the client, the principal contractor, the principal designer, the dates, the stuff which you pretty much filled in on that construction phase plan, which I pulled up and which Mark's going to send you as well. That's it. We've notified the HSE. They know a construction project is taking place. They know when it will start. They know when it will end. They may turn up, they may not. It depends what's happened previously in the past, whether it's a new event, what's going on, whether it's in their remit to come out of the office and have a look. There's a whole host of different reasons why they might turn up and have a look around and see what's going on. But make sure on site you've got your construction phase plan, you've got the risk assessments for the contractors working, and you have your risk assessments and your event safety plan available for them to look at, because they will want to see how you're managing that construction on that site and how you're looking after those workers and those contractors. So a little bit of an overview, what we've had a look at. Like we said, keep it simple. Do keep it simple. It can be quite confusing. We can have lots of projects going on, but keep it simple. Like we said in our little question time we had a few moments ago, if we've got the event safety management plan right, it will be simple. We will be able to find the information quite quickly and quite easily and create that construction phase plan and know we are compliant with the CDM, the Construction Design Management Regulations as well. Use those existing documents, the risk assessments, the project plans, etc. Make sure we have identified those key persons. Who is doing what? We have a site manager. Who is your site manager? Put that person's name in there as the principal contractor. Who's doing the design, all the stuff in the background, the pre-stuff? That's their principal designer, okay? If it's a one-man band, if you're a one-man band organising the event, you're all of it. You're the client, you're the principal contractor, you're the principal designer. If you're doing the whole lot, you are the person you need to write down for each one of those points. And you need to keep all your documentation. And this is quite key. I haven't mentioned it before, but we need to keep the risk assessments, the method statements, the inductions, the site registers, accident log, event safety management plan for 10 years. We have to keep it for 10 years. And the only reason we keep it for that length of time is if someone was injured or something happens and that person comes back and says, I was injured on the site doing X, you need to prove whether they had the induction, whether the risk assessments were there, whether the right documentation was there. So you know you've done your due diligence and your duty of care to ensure that you are not up for prosecution for missing something. We need to keep it for 10 years. It's just that backside covering exercise to keep the documents. And as people say, what am I going to do with all this stuff? If it's on paper, scan it. Scan it, stick it in a zip file, upload it somewhere, stick it in the cloud somewhere, stick it somewhere so you know you've got it for 10 years. If the company goes bust, you still need the documentation. You need to store it somewhere for 10 years. So make sure it is there for 10 years. So we come to any more questions. Now we've got through all of that. I'm sure there's a few more questions which come out. So let's see.
There are a few, all right. I'd say, can you stop screen sharing again, and we'll get the kill. Let's assume there's still a lag, so wait 4 or 5 seconds after me, and we'll try and muddle through this for people. There's something that's been discussed a couple of times now, and it could be important and it might not be important, but let's clarify it. I think the wording is, people are telling me after pulling it from the HSE website, that it's if you're going to last more than 30 days and have 20 people or more on site at any point in time, and then it's an or the 500 hours thing. So I think technically that's how it is. I think Alistair made a very good point. Other than a half hour of your life lost, there's no harm in sending an F10 if one of them applies. And I think in my experience with UK sites and stuff, most people view it as like you said, any one of the three, and they'll notify and they'll make sure they're covered that way. And as Alistair says, half an hour of your life, but you're definitely covered. You've notified them.
I totally agree with that, because the last thing you want is the HC turn up on your event and say, you haven't notified us. So the way we always run it, if it hits one of those, notify them. Yes, it takes 30 minutes, but if they're notified and they've got that information, they've been told. If they turn up, they're normally a lot nicer. If they suddenly get wind there's an event going on, there's a big build going on, they've had no information, you're on the back foot and they're going to be looking for anything. And that's what they will do. It's part of their job. What is going on? Why haven't we been notified? How do we know we haven't got 20 workers on site? How do we know it's not going to be 30 days? How do we know with accumulation of 100 people on site working for 5 days, there's 500 days? So how do we know we haven't hit that? So the best thing we can do is just send it in, just fill it in, get it in. They've got it. They're happy.
Yeah, I'd imagine if it's anything like the similar organisation here in Ireland, they're not just sitting there twiddling their thumbs waiting for you to notify them and then they'll definitely come see you. I think there's no harm in them knowing. And look, let's be honest, when it comes to the arse covering that we're all engaged in some respect in what we do, if you're doing it right, let them know. They're not going to visit you probably unless there is an issue or unless, heaven forbid, there is an incident. There's a couple of people making a good point there, just as you said, about keeping your records for 10 years. They're making the point that people under 18, the clock doesn't start until people hit 18 years of age. So if they were to, for instance, have an accident at 16, their clock to take a case doesn't start till 18. So you might actually want to be keeping files even longer.
Yeah,
like it's mad the amount of time we've to hold on files.
Yeah, I agree. You know, with the first aid at work regulations, etc., you've got that additional time to add on if they're under 18. I've just done this assuming everyone's over 18, partly because within construction and construction sites in the UK, they assume that people working on site are over 18. So if you've got people under 18 on site, obviously you've got some other bits you need to be cautious of and work. You've got the young persons who work out and all that sort of stuff you need to have a look at and start implying how you protect those people who are under 18. So a majority of places will turn around and say it's no under 18s on site because of that paperwork and the extra litigation which you need to put into place to make sure those people are safe.
Yeah, and I think, there's Martin Cullen joining us. Hey, Martin. I think, Martin, I'm not sure your sound is on, is it? I think in my experience, a lot of sites manage to deal with the no under 18s on site. What I have seen is festivals, as you get closer and traders and stuff start loading in, so you could still have big stages being constructed and you might have those under 18s who are working with traders and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, it's always going to happen, isn't it? Because as soon as the traders come on, you look around and they've signed something saying, no, we haven't got anyone under 18 with us. And then I've got my lad with me. He's okay. He's going to sit in the van. And then you see them wandering around the site taking some pictures and some selfies because they're on the site. You know, that's what's going to happen, isn't it? It's having that discussion with them saying they shouldn't be. If they are, let us know so we can make a note to say we have got under 18s on site. And as we had on one last year, that a fencing contractor told us quite 3 times, no, we don't have any under 18s. until his son, who was 15, hit himself with a sledgehammer and broke his foot. Then it was like, well, okay, now we've got a different ball
Now we
game.
have to deal with that.
Yeah. So,
I mean, we've had it where we've called marquee companies and SCAF guys back to deal with something. And look, I get it in the real world. If they had their kids in the van at the time, so they're trying to respond quickly and get something sorted. But us having kids wandering around when SCAF is being fixed, while it might seem fine to the guy doing the SCAF and it's his kids, like that doesn't work from a site safety point of view. You're under. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading. People are saying the sound lag for me is solved now. Like you're still not in charge of loads and control of lots of things happening around you on a building site or an event site. So just because you think your young lad is good and he'll stay out of the way and he'll do what he's told, like that doesn't. I've seen so many near misses. I've seen a couple of accidents. And again, you've done what you can. You've told everyone the kids can't be on site. You monitor as much as you can, but you're always going to find. And look, I'm not ragging on traders. We don't have events without traders, but quite often that's where the under 18 element comes more often than not, you know.
Yeah, totally agree, Mark. Same experiences, and it is that, isn't it? We just got to manage it and say, you know, if they're on site, how are we going to deal with it? And one thing we normally in place, I've aimed this at the fact, just assume they're over 18. We know we're going to get under 16s, under 18s on site. Just have a little policy in place that if you have under 18s on site and how you're going to manage it. If you've got a bit of paperwork there and you've got a policy, stick it under their nose and get them to sign it. You've got something signed, You've got something in the file. So if something goes wrong, you're covered, they're covered. And that's what you're looking at.
Sorry, I was laughing there. I'm after getting a few messages on the phone and in here saying that Martin's head popping in seems to have fixed the sound lag. Thank you, Martin. Martin, is your sound working? You can hear us, but we're not hearing you. I'm seeing your mouth move, but we're not hearing you. So there must be an issue with your sound. Maybe have a go at fixing it there. And if I suddenly hear you, we'll involve you here, because there were some questions came up about CDM and whether it applied to Ireland and stuff. And like I said, Martin would look after a lot of that build safety for us. So I'd be keen to get him in on that if you can get a sound working. Here's a really easy question for you, Ben. Are you ready?
Go on.
If there's an accident, how is liability shared? Now, I'll give you 10 seconds to answer that one.
Oh, just make sure everyone's got insurance, because it depends where it falls. I'll give an example. An electric contractor. The best one I can give, it was a court case which happened here in the UK. So you need to make sure that everyone has got insurance. So not only the organizer, the festival, the event was going in place, but everyone else who's working under it. Now, obviously, majority are self-employed in the UK. They'll probably take out some insurance, probably something like Bet2 or whatever they're going to do. So they've got some insurance themselves. But the insurance, it can hit everyone. So the example I'll give you was a construction site where there was a failing in the CDM and communications levels. So a site manager asked one of his lads to cut through a cable, which was a 10 kV cable, which he got told was turned off. They never checked; it wasn't turned off. So he was only 22. This young lad's supervisor said, "Cut through the channel, so cut through the cable." So he did, and he was electrocuted with 10,000 volts. What happened in the court case, which came out of it, was the young lad's company, his site manager, he was fined. The site manager, which was another contracting company, they were fined for inefficient tag out, log out, lock off procedures. But then the main client was also fined as well. And three of them, all of those, were also individually prosecuted by the young lad's family for negligence as well. So you not only have the court, the name sort of Crown prosecution case, there was also the personal court case and prosecution which came afterwards at each of those companies, which they need to make sure they have the insurance in place. The most important thing is if you're working on a site, make sure you've got adequate insurance. It doesn't cost much. Take it out. If something goes wrong, you know you are covered. And that's the most important thing. Make sure you've got insurance. And if your vetting contractors coming into site, on the vetting documentation, ask for their insurance documents. Make sure it's up to date and make sure they've got relevant insurance for what they're doing.
Yeah, that's one thing I was going to say. We can all, as safety people, we can all get a bit distracted by risk assessment method statements and making sure they're as robust as we think they need to be. And yet I've seen at times insurance maybe not followed up on as vigorously, and it is only when something happens. And if you're the guy who hasn't sent their insurance yet and suddenly everyone's ringing in a panic asking for it, you mightn't be as quick to send it now. So we've had that happen. So as part of the box ticks at the start, the insurance thing is one to make sure everyone have. And I don't know about you or any of the other safety people we have on here, but we're always very clear with clients that from an insurance perspective, I'll check a business description and I'll check it's in date. But I will always say that they should have their own insurance people look at insurance documents, because A, I'm not spending my time doing that. B, it's not where my expertise lies. I will check that the business description seems to make logical sense to me and that it's in date. But after that, whereas I'm quite happy to go through risk assessments and method statements and kind of, poke through them and pull them apart if I need to. But the insurance thing, you need to make sure they have it, and always put that back on, depending on your work situation, put it back on the client or put it back on your insurance people to check or whatever, if it's hanging on you. Martin Cullen, I think we have your sound now, do we? Hello. Again, sorry, everyone, this is Martin, my business partner, does a lot of the event build and break safety for us. So I wanted to make sure he was here because a few people have asked about CDM, and I mean, they've asked about Republic of Ireland specifically, but look, I suppose the question is, does it apply to other jurisdictions? I mean, Martin, do you want to run through quickly what the situation here in Ireland is as regards CDM and similar?
Yeah, so I suppose, first of all, Ben, thanks. Great talk this morning. Very, very informative. There is a lot of crossover, I think, between what we do here in the Republic and what we do and what you guys do in the UK. I suppose, in essence, what we work through is the Safety, Health and Welfare Construction Regs, which is 2013. There was a small amendment made, so I think in 2015, but the general document itself will be 2013. Two, I suppose, main key aspects of that would be the PSCS roles and the PSDP roles, which, Ben, you would have spoke about a lot there. That's the project supervisor construction stage, and then the project supervisor design phase. One of the big ones, we've done a few of them here in Ireland, and we have done some of them abroad as well. But I suppose, again, it comes into the implication of the timelines which Mark discussed and Ben went into in detail in his talk about the amount of time on site, the amount of personnel that's also on site as well. The big one that we would use it for one of our clients would be one where we have 30 staff on site who don't speak English and one multi-bilingual translator who is trying to converse all of the rules and regulations. So while I was here tapping away from some other work, I was kind of having a bit of a giggle to myself, Ben, when I was listening to you. And then I was getting the odd wave of, oh, Jesus, lads, I remember when we went back to that day. And when you're dealing with the language barrier, first thing, I think as well as that, when you're dealing with a cultural aspect of how certain persons from certain jurisdictions, what they perceive as correct working at height, how they perceive in their brain how you use a welder, etc., etc. Having signage in 3 different languages, having toolbox talks in the morning, 3 different languages, and then the documentation that you refer to for the 10 years, which is AS, you're dead right, having that in 3 different languages, whether it's English, Chinese, and Cantonese, and so there is an awful lot of crossover between the UK and us. I suppose it's like most things; it's just some of the terminology is slightly different. But then when you do read into it, it is a lot of the same. But the one thing I would completely agree with what Ben says is that the attention is in the detail, and the detail of the documents, of each of those documents, and it's up to whoever, I suppose, the PCS or PSCS who's on site to make sure that all that document is collected, collated properly, and is filed properly as well, that it's there for if you have to go back to kind of come across it on the rainy day as such.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because even very recently we worked on a project here in Ireland that was for the Institution of Engineering and Technology in the UK. So they were running events in the UK and some in Ireland. So naturally, they were trying to apply CDM and CDM roles, the principal contractor role and everything to over here. So when they got in touch with us, I had a few goes at trying to, without seeming really dodgy, I think, trying to explain that the exact roles don't appear here. We don't have CDM regs, but if you look at everything you want that principal contractor to do, that is the role we will be taking on. So I can affirm for you in whatever way you need me to, that we will fulfill those tasks. And in Ireland, that's what we do. And it is your box ticked as such, but they were naturally caught up in that the UK system and language and everything. So it took a little while for me to kind of just show and demonstrate that, look, what we're doing is exactly what you need. It's just not called principal contractor. So, but I do think this has come up in some of the other talks and in lots of conversations recently. Generally speaking, and this is a generalization, so don't jump at me, anyone with the exceptions that prove the rule, but a lot of the governance and the regs and stuff that apply to events in the UK are often rolled out around the world as kind of best practice. And if you're in a jurisdiction where there isn't anything, bring the green guide, bring CDM, bring UK stuff, and you have a little bit of peace of mind that you're operating at a level that should have you covered. And sometimes that's what you have to do. But ultimately, it's a judgment call a lot of the time. The safety person is making these types of judgment calls and needs to be comfortable with the call they make, document it, and be able to back it up if anything happens.
I think that's one of the key learnings that we have had in our experience, particularly dealing with foreign contractors, is that it's imperative that prior to them ever coming on site, because by the time you come on site, as Ben was saying, it's all about the induction and the toolbox talks, but prior to them coming on site, that their key people can communicate to them that this is, in our country, this is what best practice is. And what I would mean by that is that, for example, how the electrician team or the engineering team that would come with the foreign nationals to come to our country to do how they think they would normally do it, and what we would expect would be best practice, is that's a weird one to have when you're on site and you're looking at this thing kind of going, I don't really think that we're quite happy with that. So it's definitely something that, and again, this is just basically if you're dealing with contractors who are coming from outside the jurisdiction, to communicate that information in advance as much as possible. And what that's doing is then, for your whole safety file and everything else, that's adding another layer on top of the standard issue practices that you would normally implement for your event.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Martin. There's nothing wrong. I mean, we've used translators to translate site induction forms and also send out some instructions, even convert the risk assessment form so it goes out so they can actually fill it in their language how we want it doing. And as you say, when you get out on site, there is that language barrier at times, isn't there? Because not being funny, events is a multinational, organisation, isn't it? I mean, we go around the world, we see different people, we have different languages, we have different cultures, we have different standards. And I agree completely with what you say. And I expect we've all done it. We've been to those countries, we look at what's going on, and we walk away as a safety officer thinking, blimey, what the bloody hell is going on here? But if you've got those tools, that toolbox, the green guide, purple guide, the CDM regs, etc., and you apply those, at least you know you're working to some sort of standard, and you know you're putting something into place which you're happy with, and know that site is actually safe. And I think that's it's having that ability to do it, isn't it? It's having those tools, and actually just having the ability to say, no, this is how we're going to do it.
I think it's just, if you from the outset, once you can employ the guidance that you want to abide by, so then people don't get confused about perception of how they perceive that thing needs to be done. So you're giving the guidance, this is the book, or this is what we are going to, the Bible of what we're going to work by. And then also as well, I suppose the one thing I learned is that depending on what jurisdiction you're in. Whatever about if you're in your own home country and you have contractors from outside coming in, but when you flip it over and you go to a completely other jurisdiction on the far side of the world, you're then having to think, well, yes, this is what you want your guidance to be. You're working within that country's domain, and then you're also working within the cultural vibe in that country, and you're trying to get the three of those, put them together to get what you want to be as the best outcome for your client. Because in essence, I think Mark noted this, is that the reason why they're employing us in the first place is because they look at us, they look at from Europe and they look at from the UK or any other European countries as being the leaders from a safety perspective. And that's the reason why they're employing you, and that's the reason why you're bringing you over there to put these best practices into place. And then the fun starts.
Yeah, very much so.
The bottom line, I suppose, is, what are the rules that you'll be prosecuted by? I mean, that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, when we have foreign contractors come and work in Ireland, like, it's Irish regulations we'll all be prosecuted by. So that's what we have to try and meet and live up to, if they exist. There's a question come in there, Ben. Well, it's to any of the panel, but I suppose it's mainly you, in that you would probably have this experience more so than Martin and I. Do you have any experience or views on the difference between event type principal contractors and construction type principal contractors? I mean, would there be people who float across both?
I've met a couple, but not many. You'll find that someone who works in construction will predominantly stay in construction, and you'll find those people who work in events will predominantly stay in events. They're two completely different beasts, completely. And you will find that some people who have been site managers on main construction sites can't make the transition across. They can't make the transition across because of how events work. We've got such a diverse range of different people and how they operate, and the scale of them, and the time scale, and how people work as well. Yeah. And to be honest, there's a couple, but you don't normally see it. People either stay in construction or they stay in events, and that's normally what will happen.
Yeah, it's not going to be that common, even from the safety perspective. I know you go across kind of traditional construction, health and safety, and events. Even here in Ireland, that wouldn't be too common to find someone with that kind of experience or that comfort to float across the two. In the same way I gave you that really easy liability during an accident question. Here's a kind of a similar one, but you might have some hints and tips. There was I'm paraphrasing, by the way, but this is similar, has come in a couple of times. As regards compliance on site, and not knowing that as soon as you turn your back, the hard hats will be off and riggers will be monkeying across truss and stuff like that. Do you have, I mean, this is the open-ended, never-ending question, but do you have any tips or hints or things that you find work to aid in compliance? We all know the problems that exist there. Generally speaking, I know there are amazing contractors who do everything perfectly, but generally speaking, as a rule, have you any magic wand situations you can advise for people?
I'd love to have a magic wand for that one. Some things we have done is we've slightly deregulated parts of sites.
Okay.
So there's this thing that it's a construction site, we must wear high vis, we must wear steel toe cap boots. You've got to wear hard hats. But if you look at the areas where you need hard hats, to get people to sometimes comply and actually buy into it, just say, these are areas, and delineate them. Even if it's some ped barrier, most people's got ped barrier floating around. When we go in this area, you've got to have high vis, boots, and hard hat because we're going near the stage area. The rest of the site, nothing's going to fall on you. Take the hard hat off. You might have other areas of the site where it could be like the camping area. Someone marking out the campsite using a white line marker. Do they really need steel toe cap boots on? Probably not. So look at it in that sort of common sense approach and think, if I turn this into a full construction site like you walk into a major city, and we're going to say everyone's going to have to wear boots, hard hat, high vis, gloves, and eye protection, you can guarantee in the events industry that is not going to happen. Doesn't matter what you say, it is not going to happen. So the only way I've got around it is talking to different organisers and saying, well, what if we just say, we use this and this bit, and we make a delineation, we put some things up, you come past here, got to wear it. If you're not wearing it, you're going to get sent back and get told to put your boots on, your hard hat on, etc. And sometimes just having that bit of flexibility works, and they respect, because they know I can come out here, I can take my hat off, I can just wear my high vis. We've still got that.
That's the age-old thing. I suppose there's that element of risk or reticence that would stop some safety officers having to go at that to deregulate, to regulate nearly. Dan Ward has come in with something quite interesting there, which I like. He says, when I'm monitoring contractor compliance on a live site, I employ a red, amber, green process. So the more I deem a contractor a risk, the more I monitor them. The contractors know he uses the system, but they don't know whether they themselves are red, amber, green. So here comes big scary Dan. I don't know which color I am.
I'd be scared of Dan.
Yeah, I'd be scared of Dan too if he was the safety officer on my site. Ben, I'm conscious of just kind of boxing off as many questions I saw come in there. A lovely general one. How do you think social distancing is going to impact event safety management plans and what we're actually trying to plan? Is it realistic? Can we run a version of an event that will be acceptable in every sense while trying to enforce social or physical distancing? Is that realistic?
I think you're not the only person who's asked me that. I'm sure you've been asked that as well several times. And I think this is a very, very difficult question to answer. How we will do a build as a construction site, but maintain that social distancing. Now, someone posed that to me a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, I'm going to have a look and see what's happening. So very, very fortunately, where I live in Lincoln, we've got a bypass being built, and the bypass has not stopped because, one, they're already 8 months behind schedule, and with this, it's now not going to be finished at Christmas. It's going to be next summer at least. So I thought I'll go and have a look. I know some people down there. We're going to have a look and see on site how it's working. And it was very, very interesting. And to be honest, there's some parts which probably will roll over into the events industry. And one thing which was very, very clear was the social distancing. They're able to do the jobs where they can isolate and maintain that social distancing. However, the parts of the build where they need people in close proximity, for example, every single bridge which they're building on the bypass, they can't do because people are having to work within a 2 meter space. They're trying to work out whether people will come back with test results and say, if it's negative, does that lower the risk significantly to allow those people to work together if we put other procedures in place, i.e. masks, restricting the amount of time those people work together. But to be honest, there is no quick fix. And if you look at some of the operations which you undertake on sites, on the builds, people work in close proximity because of the nature of what we're doing.
Yeah.
How we will implement that, I don't know. And to be honest, I think it's a wider one. Maybe it's one to open up a lovely discussion forum, Mark, and see what people come up with. Because, that's the one. That's the one. And see what people come up with. Because I honestly, I don't know. Because it's all right saying people go back to work when they do X, Y, and Z. But we've got two big things we have to work to in the UK. We've got the Health and Safety at Work Act, which means we've got to look after the person's occupational health, which this is a disease which is notifiable now in the UK. So how do we do that? And secondly, under management of health and safety at work regulations, we've got to make sure we take appropriate actions to make sure we're protecting those people. So with both of those conflicting and the government advice coming out and saying 2 meters, social distancing, etc., if we've got builds going on and we've got to bring people closer together, how do we mitigate and make sure they're safe? And I really don't have an answer for that. Yeah. I think the only other place to go back to would be to go and look potentially in other sectors like care homes, hospitals, and see how they're doing it. Although how they're doing it is quite well managed. But would we be able to implement that on a construction site? I don't know. I'm quite doubtful at the moment.
It's a very interesting one, and it's one Martin and I have discussed at length. We were engaged on a project early on during the COVID-19 restrictions to work with a government client that we work with here to come up with a standard operating procedure for what any other time would be an event site build. So, in this instance, it's probably more for temporary control centers and testing centers and stuff like that. But it's what we all know. It's building marquees, and it's the plant that comes with it and all that. So we had to devise SOPs for that kind of thing. And interestingly, to the client, one of the key core principles we said we were building it on was that normal RAMs and normal SOPs for contractors performing X, Y, and Z need to be implemented, whether that needs them going within 2 meters of each other or not. So if before COVID, as people are pointing out in the chat here, if before COVID a certain operation was a 2 or a 3 man job and they need to be within 2 meters of each other to do it, that doesn't suddenly change because of COVID. Yes, there's now this extra risk, but what you can't have is a job that's been acknowledged for 40 years as needing 2 guys within 2 meters of each other to be safe. Now it's one guy going, all right, I'm going to have to run at this myself because we're not supposed to be within 2 meters. So, I mean, for us, it's a very existential question and stuff, but I think what has to happen for us to get back to events that were anywhere near or like what we had before is this is just another risk. And we need to reach a point where we think health centers and health systems won't be overwhelmed and can deal with spikes in cases arising out of, a big event or whatever. But we have to reach a point where we're evaluating this risk the same as any other. And I am known for saying this, and I'll say it again to do with COVID, like we'll have an event at some point where COVID-19 is a risk, but people will be at greater risk of tripping over some cable we've put down, or the dodgy gazebo getting caught in the wind and coming down on them. Like that, we need to reach a point for us to be all doing our jobs right again, where it's just another risk and we assess it and we mitigate it and we make it as safe as reasonably practicable,
Mm. Yeah, totally agree. I think that's all we can do. As you say, it is a risk. How do we manage it? How do we look after it? I think we just need to look at seeing what's come out from government guidelines. As you say, Are we going to be able to manage any spikes if they come up? I know there's this discussion around sort of sports and this COVID passport, this coronavirus passport. It's being tested on a passport. So yes, we are okay to go on those sites. Whether that's something else which is rolled out, do you look at antibody testing? No couple of projects which I'm coming up for. We will have to have a test 2 weeks before we go on site to say what's come back negative. When the antivirus testing come out, have we got antivirus antibodies in our bloodstream before we go on site? So I think we just need to look at it and say, how do we manage it? As you say, is it the fact it's a one-man person, and can we, do we have to stop that job until a point where it is safe, or do we put other stuff into place to make sure it's safe so that we can do it?
Yeah. And I think it's worth mentioning here, given the people in the room, and I think people are mentioning it in the chat, is there seems to be this major focus on PPE. And if we look in the hierarchy of controls, generally speaking, and see where PPE lives, it's not the go-to first option, So, from a COVID-19 perspective and its specific risk case, PPE, masks and stuff, they actually probably climb up a little bit on the hierarchy of controls. But to just be lashing out the PPE and thinking we've solved the problem here, I don't think that's going to do anyone any service if we rush back to get things open relying on PPE,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that reliance on PPE, I mean, everyone just thinks, I'll stick some gloves on, stick a mask on, I'm invincible. But it's not that, is it? As you say, we've got that lovely hierarchy of controls which we can use. And we need to be thinking further up there, how we can eliminate, how we can reduce, etc., before we get to that PPE stage. And we need to be thinking about that right from the start, look at it as that risk control, rather than just the PPE as the final resort, isn't it? It's the last resort we can use is some PPE. So what have we got in place before we get to that? So as safety advisors and risk managers, I think it's going to be quite an interesting process going forward, and how we look at that in relation to live events and events in general.
I think what might happen is a lot of people in the safety game, like we all are, probably will need to be making, it's not going to be black and white. We're going to need to be making our own rules to a small degree and be comfortable making them. We can look at best practice. I can ring you up and go, look, what are you doing? We can all help each other out. But to a degree, you're going to be putting your head above the parapet more so than you might have been before if you're doing this work at the minute and saying, look, based on our experience, our qualifications, best practice, talking to international colleagues, we think X, Y, and Z will do it. yes, there's every possibility, as with every risk assessment any of us do, that something goes wrong, it will all get called into question. The playbook hasn't been written for this yet. So I think we're all going to be writing bits and corners of it. And maybe we'll all look back in 5 years' time and go, as a best practice exercise, let's put the playbook for COVID together now. And let's see, for fun, how close were we? Who got it right? Who didn't? But I mean, we all going to have to take this risk at some stage. A lot of people making the point in the chat there that PPE is way down the list of controls. I mean, I think there's a logical and pragmatic argument that in this exact instance, PPE, if you count masks as PPE, may climb the hierarchy of controls slightly. But generally speaking, it can't be the solution and isn't the solution to everything. I should say actually that the files that Ben has been talking about that will be available for download are now they're available in the download the files area there for anyone who wants to grab them, and that includes the slides from the presentation is there in a PDF. I'm just running through questions here to see have we missed anything. There's one. Does a build within a build? So the way we talked about a large site and then smaller exhibitors building their own thing. So does a build within a build have to be fully self-sufficient, or can it be brought in under the overall construction phase plan governing the overall build, if you get me?
It can be brought in under the main encompassing one, to be honest. So the way normally run it on sites, because you do get other builds happening, and they could be classed as an independent build in their own right, but it's happening for you as a client as such, is to bring them underneath it and just get them to submit a form how they're doing it, what's their RAMs, what's their risk assessment, who's responsible on site, who's that site manager for it. Most of those big builds are things like the stages. And those sort of things, it's happening for you because you're the organizer, you're asking for it to be done. So bring it under you, but get them to submit the paperwork and get them to fill in one of those construction phase plan documents. Just send it to you so they've thought about the work and the height, the risk, the falls, whether they're using mutes, tower scaffolds, and how they're inspecting it and using it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And again, we talked about it. It's something Martin kind of instituted for us a couple of years ago on certain projects where you just have to accept sometimes. And there are many use cases for this where RAMs and impressive documentation isn't going to be forthcoming from some people. It may make more sense for us to do our job right for our client, to bring some of these guys and girls in under the umbrella a bit, get them to do X instead of expecting them to do Y and Z and knowing it's never going to happen. So again, with templates and with stuff we send out to them, and literally at times hand-holding even on site to get them to handwrite stuff in. So something exists, we understand, because they understand what they do better than Martin does or I do or you do. They understand those risks. They may never have sat down and created a document, but if I sit with them for 10 minutes and they show me and talk me through what they do, I can probably help them fill in a very simple template that maps this out, and they sign it. And hopefully, if it ever comes to it, I now have a greater understanding of what they do and the risks associated with it. And we've had it a few times where they come back afterwards thanking you for helping them create this little document, because now they've been asked for it somewhere else and they have something to show for it. But you don't want to be the guys who are in banging on the door going, you're not coming on site, give me that thing, we need it. Sometimes, as you alluded to earlier, it takes a little bit more of a real-world pragmatic approach to safety on site, especially during the build and break. I've been on massive festival sites in the UK where my counterparts, girls on our team, know going to that festival, know by the contractors better than I would, because most of my work's in Ireland or in Saudi. They just knew there would never be leading edge protection on the main stage. And I'm there going, what do you mean they're not going to put leading edge? Like, we have to put edge protection up there. Look at the drop. And they're like, feel free to have the conversation. We know these guys. We know what we can get them to do. We know what they're going to sign off on. We've logged that they won't do what we've asked. It's just the thing in this situation, on this site, on this day. And you're not always going to get where you need to be. I know someone who's obsessed with steel toe cap boots. And like you said, you could make a very logical argument for the risk in the area I am operating in does not warrant me wearing them. But her thing is everyone on site has to have them. And sometimes that can win you friends or it can make you enemies. And sometimes the safety people have to make judgment calls and go, look, yes, that thing fell on her foot. Here's why I didn't insist on her wearing steel toe caps. And here's my logic, here's my reasoning, here it is documented, and hope that stands to us. That's putting your head on a block, you know?
Yeah, totally. And it's all those things, isn't it? You know, a bit of hand holding, a bit of spoon feeding, a bit of give, a bit of take. But that's what we should be doing as safety officer, isn't it? Safety advisors on site having a look and working together to make sure the site is right.
It comes back to what we discussed earlier about, you know, I think Dan there noted on as well. It's about getting that you want that buy-in from everybody who's coming on site, that they know exactly what's expected from them. And sometimes you're dealing with contractors who would be at the top of their game, and other ones who maybe wouldn't deal as much with, say, larger sites or more, I suppose, complicated builds as such. And likewise, when they're on site, and Dan was referring to as colour schemed cards and so forth, where you're getting that buy-in, where if you, with the documents that we designed before, as in, and I hate using the word sometimes generic templates, but if you can send them a template, and on that template that you, as holding the safety file, you know that you have the information in there. It's a simplified document, so there's no misinterpretation of it, that this is the stuff that you require, that this is what you need, and then they come back and give that information. Or then, as Mark said, if they're saying no, that whatever it is, that once it's not creating a risk or going to affect anybody, that we now know that they are safe, or saying that their team have worked in this particular way for the last X amount of years. This is what it is. This is how they minimise that risk, and therefore that's it. It's not just, well, if you don't have steel toe caps, good luck. Or if you don't, you know, there needs to be a bit of variance, but once that we're happy that we're not putting anybody at risk, or we're not putting our client at risk, or leaving them open to claims or anything along those lines, you know, it's very important. Not always black and white, as the man says.
No, and Martin, much like me, would love if things were always black and white. That's the way our brains are wired. But in this game, sometimes you make calls, you use your experience and your expertise, and you do it. I've always said in any training we've ever delivered that you could bring in 10 more safety officers, less experienced, more experienced, worked in different parts of the world, put the same challenges to us, ask us the same, what look like simple questions. We'll give you different answers. We'll give you different interpretations of rules. Probably no one's right or wrong. And we'll all be able to justify why we've gone the way we've gone. I mean, that's part of the game. It's a little bit like my accountant has a thing about ringing revenue in Ireland, and keep ringing until you get the answer you want, because they're all in there interpreting the revenue rules. So you just keep going until you get the answer that suits you. And it's a bit like that. I know clients often will hop from safety people to get the answer they want. And it's not that anyone's right or wrong. It's as long as you can justify how you got there. So I guess the trick is, from a client perspective, have someone that specializes in that safety advising you, and understand, as Martin says, it's not always black and white. And it's not always as easy as, oh, we read the rule book for you, so you don't have to, here's our half-day charge. Sometimes it's interpretation, and it's advice based on experience. And that's kind of that bubble we all live in, and that risk we take on. Which is another reason our own insurance is very important.
Very much so. Very much so.
I think I'm looking at questions. We've gone through all the questions I noted down. I've scanned through chat. There's nothing really. There's lots of conversations going on. Connor has just put up the link to Jotform there. I know you were mentioning it. Not affiliated. There are other options, but it works for you. No, you're not the first person to actually say they use Jotform for that stuff, and it seems to be workable. I think we're nearing that time where I thank Ben for the session. And actually, much like the other session so far, I also thank all you guys for getting involved the way you have. I've been on, I don't know about you, but I've been on lots of webinars where the chat and the interaction isn't what it seems to be on these webinars, which I quite like. I know it can be a bit distracting, but if you want to dip into that chat and have a conversation on the side there about what we're talking about, you know, that's part of where there's value in this for some people. So I'm really liking the interaction people are getting there. And I also like that it's happened on every session now that, you know, there are people there who are happy to put opinions across and, again, put their head in a block and say, look, I interpreted it this way. I don't know. Does Ben do it the same way I view it? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's what we're all here for, to try and help one another get better. That's what these webinars are for. And again, it's something I've always said, and I'm saying a lot more lately because COVID has proven it to me. The event industry has a reputation that people don't want to share and don't want to help each other outside of little cliques or people who already know each other. Ben and I have never met. We've never worked together. I put a call out that we were thinking of doing these webinars, and Ben is one of the first to jump in and go, look, I do this kind of stuff. I'm happy to do one if you want. And the fact that we got 22 people and more who did similar tells me that we're all happy to share. We're all quite keen, whether it's in a webinar or in a chat or on some forum or a group on LinkedIn. We are all quite happy to share. And hopefully when we're back to normal after COVID, we're all still happy to do it too. So if anyone wants us to do anything or get on a webinar, and feel free. We're conscious everyone's giving their time here. So Ben, thank you very much. I've put everything, all the documents live. If people come to us looking for you, we'll send them on to you. Your Twitter and the website and stuff were on those holding slides, so people probably have them. For everyone else, we've got the next webinar is on Friday. It's Caitlin Kobrak doing a session on social media for B2B events, which is lovely. It's quite nichey, but there's been a big uptake on people who clearly that's their world. They live in B2B and they're keen on leveraging social. So that's quite busy as well. So I think that's it. No one's jumped in with a burning question while I've been waffling there. So I think we're good. Ben, thanks you very much. Martin, thank you for popping in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone else for joining us. We'll see you on the next sessions. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.